To the world, he was the lovable patriarch of 1313 Mockingbird Lane, a monster with the heart of a teddy bear. Fred Gwynne is a television icon, yet the man beneath the green makeup was far more complex than his simple-minded character. A Harvard graduate, talented illustrator, and professional singer, Gwynne was a gentle giant who carried a profound sadness behind his booming laughter. While Herman Munster brought joy to millions, Fred's real life was marked by devastating tragedy and a lifelong battle against typecasting. Today, we look past the bolts in his neck to remember the resilient artist within. A man who proved that the scariest things in life aren't ghosts, but the quiet heartbreaks we endure in silence. Childhood and early years. Frederick Hubbard Gwynne was born on July 10, 1926, in New York City, entering a world far removed from the spooky, cobwebbed aesthetic of his future fame. He was born into a life of affluence and social standing. His father, Frederick Walker Gwynne, was a successful partner in a securities firm, and his mother, Dorothy Ficken, was a former artist with a vibrant creative spirit. This wealthy upbringing provided young Fred with opportunities, but his childhood was somewhat transient, moving between New York, South Carolina, Florida, and Colorado as he grew up. Despite his imposing stature, Fred's interests were surprisingly delicate. He harbored a lifelong passion for painting and drawing, eventually attending Harvard University. There, his creative talents flourished. He drew cartoons for the famous Harvard Lampoon and sang with the Crocodilos a cappella group. After serving in the U.S. Navy during World War II, Fred turned away from a predetermined life of high society. Instead of a safe career, he chose the unpredictable world of performance, following an artistic calling that would define his future. Private and emotional life. Fred Gwynne's private life was the anchor that kept him grounded, though it was also the source of his greatest pain. In 1952, he married Jean Foxy Reynard, a socialite and granddaughter of a New York City mayor. Together, they embarked on building a large, bustling family, eventually having 5 children: Kieran, Gaynor, Evan, Maiden, and Dylan. For a time, the Gwynne household was a place of chaotic joy, filled with the noise of children and Fred's booming laughter. However, tragedy struck in the summer of 1963, a year that would forever alter the trajectory of Fred's life. While Fred was working on Car 54, Where Are You?, his youngest son, Dylan, who was just under a year old, tragically drowned in the family swimming pool. The loss was catastrophic. Fred was described by friends as being inconsolable, a man broken by a grief so profound it seemed to dim the light in his eyes permanently. Though he returned to work, hiding his sorrow behind his comedic performances, the trauma placed an insurmountable strain on his marriage. Fred and Jean eventually divorced in 1980. Regarding his children today, the family has largely remained out of the public eye, valuing the privacy that Fred so cherished. Tragically, his eldest son, Kieran, passed away in 1998, 5 years after Fred's own death, suffering from a brain injury that had left him disabled. His surviving children, Gaynor, Evan, and Maiden, have lived quiet lives away from Hollywood, a testament to Fred's desire to shield them from the industry's glare. In 1988, Fred found love again with Deborah Flater, a soulmate who shared his artistic sensibilities. This second marriage brought him a sense of peace and companionship in his final years, proving that despite the heartbreaks, his capacity to love remained undiminished. Rise and iconic TV role. Fred Gwynne's ascent in television was driven by his unique physical presence and his impeccable comedic timing. After a stint on Broadway and minor film roles, including an uncredited appearance in On the Waterfront, he caught the eye of television producer Matt Hiken. Hyken cast him as Officer Francis Muldoon in the cult classic sitcom Car 54, Where Are You? 1961 to 1963. Playing the straight man to Joe E. Ross's chaotic Gunther Tootie, Gwynne mastered the art of the reaction shot, his long, expressive face capable of conveying exasperation without saying a word. But it was in 1964 that he landed the role that would define his existence, Herman Munster in CBS's The Munsters. The premise was absurd, a family of benign monsters living in modern suburbia. But Gwynne treated the role with Shakespearean seriousness. He viewed Herman not as a monster, but as a child trapped in a giant's body. This approach gave the character a sweet, innocent vulnerability that resonated deeply with American audiences. The role, however, was a physical ordeal. Gwynne had to wear 50 pounds of padding, 4-inch platform boots, and endure hours in the makeup chair every day. The heat inside the costume was often unbearable, causing him severe back pain and dehydration. Yet, when the cameras rolled, he was electric. The show was a massive hit during its initial run and became immortal in syndication. The Munsters made him a household name, but it also became a golden cage. For decades afterward, casting directors couldn't see past the bolts in his neck. He famously said, "I love old Herman Munster. Much as I try not to, I can't stop liking that fellow," acknowledging the complex relationship he had with his own creation. The House. For fans curious about where the master of the house truly lived, the reality was far removed from the cobweb-infested Gothic mansion at 1313 Mockingbird Lane. Fred Gwynne was a man who craved solitude and nature. During the height of his fame, he lived in a classic, spacious home in Bedford, New York, perfect for his large family. But his heart truly belonged to the property he purchased in his later years, turning his back on the plastic facade of Hollywood for the rolling hills of Maryland. Fred bought a secluded farm property near Taneytown, Maryland, which became his absolute sanctuary. Technically, this was a massive change from city life. The property spanned an impressive 78 acres of open land. The centerpiece was not a modern mansion, but a historic 19th-century stone farmhouse that required significant restoration. For a man standing 6'5", living in an authentic 1800s farmhouse presented unique architectural challenges. The interiors featured original low ceilings and charming but narrow doorways. Ironically, Fred often had to duck in his own home, much like Herman Munster did. He loved the bones of the house, thick stone walls that kept it cool in summer, original hardwood floors, and exposed wooden beams that hinted at the home's long history. It was a rustic, solid structure built to last, unlike the temporary sets he was used to. The most significant room on the estate, however, wasn't in the main house. Fred converted a large, high-ceilinged barn on the property into a professional painting studio. This space was essential. Its vast vertical height allowed the giant actor to stand comfortably and work on large canvases filled with natural light. Today, the property remains a private residence and has been kept within the family or sold to private owners who respect its history. It stands as a preserved piece of rural Maryland architecture. There are no tour buses or commemorative plaques. It remains a quiet, dignified estate, a testament to a man who found peace not in a Hollywood mansion, but in the honest, solid stonework of a quiet country farm. Later years and tragedy. The years following the Munsters were professionally difficult for Gwynne. The industry had typecast him so severely that he struggled to find serious work. He turned to stage acting and voiceover work to pay the bills, often feeling bitter about the character that had overshadowed his talent. However, the late 1980s and early 1990s brought a glorious renaissance. First came his chilling performance as Judd Crandall in the film adaptation of Stephen King's Pet Sematary, 1989. proving he could be genuinely unsettling without comedy. Then came his magnum opus of redemption, the role of Judge Chamberlain Haller in My Cousin Vinny, 1992. His strict Southern authoritarian performance against Joe Pesci was brilliant, showcasing his range and finally earning him the critical respect he had long deserved. Tragically, this comeback was cut short. In late 1992, Fred was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. The disease was aggressive and swift. He retreated to his beloved farm in Taneytown, surrounded by his wife Deborah and his family. He did not seek public sympathy or make the talk show rounds to discuss his illness. He faced his mortality with the same quiet dignity he had carried all his life. Fred Gwynne passed away on July 2, 1993, just 8 days before his 67th birthday. The reaction from the public was one of shock and genuine sorrow. America realized too late that they had lost one of their most versatile yet underappreciated talents. Fred Gwynne left behind a legacy that transcends the green makeup. While his net worth was estimated at $2 million, his cultural impact is immeasurable. In a final, powerful statement of humility, he lies in an unmarked grave at Sandy Mount United Methodist Church Cemetery in Finksburg, Maryland. This was his wish, to rest without fanfare, ensuring his grave never became a tourist attraction. There are no grand festivals in his honor, but his presence is felt every Halloween. He taught us that it is okay to be different, and that kindness is the most important trait a monster can have. Today, we remember him not just as a TV character, but as a resilient father and artist who, despite the tragedies of his life, managed to leave the world smiling.